Hi, this is Kylie with Femme Flow. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, I'm going to talk about energy alchemy. Being energy alchemists is our true nature and our true divinity. It's actually our divine birthright, but when we're on Earth, this truth is hidden from us in order to control and manipulate us. And I'll get into how exactly and some background on this. But the goal of this episode is to give a little background, a little history, and then at the end, we'll talk about how you can truly step back into this true nature of being an energy alchemist. And this episode ties with another recording I'm going to put out. And that recording is a prayer, a visualization, and a energy activation in order to activate our upper chakras and align all of the chakras of our body. And that recording is to align all of our chakras and then to specifically activate our upper chakras that connect us directly to God or source energy and connect us to divine guidance. So this episode will give a great background and get into more details. And then at the end, I'll talk about the other recording and give some information about that. So to start it all off, remember, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. And like I said, we are inherently energy alchemists, and that's our true nature, and the truth has been hidden from us. Energy alchemy is essentially manipulating or transforming or transmuting energy. Remember, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transmuted. Energy alchemy is this transmutation of energy from one frequency to another. And we want to be transmuting lower frequency or lower vibrational energy into higher vibrational frequency. So there's duality here on Earth. So while energy alchemy within itself is neutral, people can use it for dark or light. And there's a spiritual war happening on Earth, and energy alchemy is how this war is fought. The dark global elite has known these secrets of energy alchemy for ages and ages. They have protected these secrets and passed the secrets down via secret societies like certain high ranks of Freemasons. They use principles of energy alchemy to control, manipulate, and it's how they have held power in the past. I've talked about in previous episodes how early Christianity was hijacked by the dark global elite in order to bury and hide the true teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The dark global elite wanted to hide this truth in order to keep control. Jesus and Mary Magdalene were absolutely energy alchemists, and their true teachings would transform this planet and set humanity free from any sort of control. The dark global elite didn't want people waking up to their true divinity and true nature of energy alchemy, so they manipulated and altered the Bible and controlled via the Roman Catholic Church. Part of the control was associating anything related to energy alchemy with Satan. So I just wanted to add a little history to this episode about the Roman Catholic Church and the Puritans and the Salem witch trials. So to get this info, I asked ChatGPT about it. So I'll read off of that. The Roman Catholic Church has historically condemned practices related to alchemy, witchcraft, and other forms of occultism. The stance primarily developed during the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance, as alchemy was seen as dabbling in forbidden knowledge, often associated with attempts to transmute base metals into gold or create the philosopher's stone. Such practices were viewed as challenging God's natural order. Witchcraft, meanwhile, was believed to involve invoking demonic forces, and in the Church's view, it represented a serious threat to the Christian community. Now I'll read about the Catholic Church's stance on witchcraft. The Catholic Church's official denunciation of witchcraft can be traced back to the 13th century, notably with Pope Innocent VIII's papal bull I do not know how to pronounce this. Summus detertantes effectibus. I probably absolutely butchered that. In 1484, which explicitly condemned witchcraft and empowered inquisitors to prosecute suspected witches. This culminated in the publication of the Hammer of Witches in 1487, a manual for identifying, prosecuting, and punishing witches, which influenced European witch hunts over the following centuries. The Church's opposition to these practices was grounded in the belief that they involved the worship of the devil, with practitioners accused of engaging in harmful magic, heresy, and apostasy. Okay, now I'll read about the Puritans and the Salem witch trials. The influence of the Catholic Church's denunciation of witchcraft is extended into Protestant communities, including the Puritans who settled in North America. Although the Puritans broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, they maintained a strong belief in the existence of witches and the danger of witchcraft. They also held similar views on the need to root out these practices as a way to preserve the purity of their communities. For the Puritans, witchcraft represented not only a spiritual threat, but also a social one, undermining their strictly religious society. The Salem witch trials, which took place in 1692 in Massachusetts, were directly influenced by this fear of witchcraft. The Puritans, who believed in the literal interpretation of the Bible, saw witchcraft as an abomination against God. Following a series of accusations, panic spread through Salem and the trials began. Over 200 people were accused and 20 were executed. The trials were partly fueled by the Puritans' intense fear of the devil and their belief in the need for a spiritually pure community. Now I'll read about connection between Catholic denunciation and the Salem witch trials. Although the Puritans and the Roman Catholic Church had differences in doctrine, they shared a similar worldview regarding the supernatural. Both held that witchcraft and occult practices were real, dangerous, and punishable by severe means. The Catholic Church's earlier inquisitions and witch hunts had set a precedent for this kind of behavior seen in Salem. These beliefs were a legacy of centuries of fear and institutional condemnation of witchcraft, creating a foundation that continued to influence the Puritans long after they left Europe. The Salem witch trials reflected a transference of fear from European witch hunts, largely rooted in Catholic and Protestant fears of witchcraft, to the New World. This tragic episode is a prime example of how deeply entrenched religious and cultural fears of witchcraft were, even in a different cultural and geographical context. That's the history per ChatGPT. It lays out how the Roman Catholic Church started this fear and hysteria around energy alchemy being associated with witchcraft and the devil. And they put out so much fear and brainwashed people that ultimately led to killing people over this. In a previous episode about connecting the dots, I talked about how the Roman Catholic Church was established by the dark global elite to control and manipulate and hide the true wisdom and the true teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. And the dark global elite go way, way back, farther than that. But the teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene were so powerful and caused such a difference that the dark global elite had to sabotage that movement and hide that wisdom and set up these traps around it. And then fast forward, and the trap is modern day Christianity. So now in current times, all of this information is coming out about Hollywood, and it's pretty clear they are using energy alchemy in dark ways via satanic rituals. I go more in depth on this in other episodes as well. You may think, well, okay, organized religions have good intentions about their teachings around energy alchemy. Perhaps they saw the dark side of it, so they condemned it all. They threw the baby out with the bathwater, essentially. And yes, I absolutely think most people teaching this, preaching about it, and believing this have good intentions. And yeah, I think they truly think they're doing the right thing, but it all stems from this dark manipulation and control. We cannot let fear overwhelm us into compliance. And I often say guilt is the basis of manipulation, and so is fear. Fear is also the basis of manipulation. And this is the playbook the dark global elite knows so well. They wrote this playbook. And we see themes of fear and guilt rampant in the teachings of Judaism, Catholicism, and the Old Testament of the Bible. Like I said, we are truly in a spiritual war, and it's fought via energy alchemy. And what better strategy is there for the dark to spread messages of fear and condemnation around the very thing that will win it all? Energy alchemy is our true divinity, and the false matrix on earth just cuts us off from this higher dimensional energy. So we must actively do things to anchor this energy in. When we anchor in this higher dimensional energy, we truly connect to God. And when we take action, set intentions that are high vibration and come from a place of love, compassion, peace, abundance, joy, freedom, we are truly co creating with God. So, back to the seed of fear that was planted around energy alchemy. We see this fear was planted by the Roman Catholic Church that was established via the dark global elite, and this perpetuated to the New World with the Protestants, and that led to the Salem witch trials. Now, from this, many associate the term witchcraft with darkness. Now, let's tie this to the fourth dimension. And as you probably know by now, if you listen to my podcast, the fourth dimension is the non physical realm of archetypes, myths, and the collective mind. And this whole idea around witchcraft is a great example of how the fourth dimension works. And I talked about how there was original archetypes when Earth was all free and resonating with higher dimensional energies. And then the dark global elite used energy alchemy, these principles, to hijack the fourth dimension and program it in ways that would control humanity and manipulate humanity. Well, manipulate for their control. The dark global elite brainwashed much of society into believing the term witchcraft is dark, and society's beliefs equate to the collective consciousness. So now, when we think of a witch, we think of the prevailing archetypal idea of a witch, which is usually a woman, dark vibes, maybe even a green face with warts on her nose, wearing a pointy hat, casting dark spells over a boiling cauldron. And so then we ask, who created this archetypal idea? Hollywood, mainstream movies, TV, entertainment. That is what is putting out this idea of what a witch archetypally is. And just in case you haven't listened to the other podcast about Hollywood, but Hollywood was created by the CIA when organized religion started to fail to control people, because organized religion was all set up in order to manipulate and control with fear and guilt. And once people started seeing past all of these teachings and the doctrine of organized religions, people started turning away. It didn't resonate with them. So then, when was the next big trap set? Hollywood. And this was another way to grab people's attention, program them with ideas, and brainwash them for control. So now we ask, what does a witch from the days of the Salem witch trials even look like? The Salem witch trials took place in 1692 and 1693. We are in 2024, so that was 332 years ago. So where do we get the idea? We look at and read so-called quote-unquote history. And much of history is lies passed down and perpetuated as truth. These lies are carefully set up to establish narratives that align with the dark global elite remaining in control. How many generations does it take for truth and true history to be forgotten and wiped out? Who is writing our history books? Who's passing this information down? We really must think critically about this. And in part due to this, the education system is the most corrupt pillar of society. And think about how the conditioning is set up. From 6 years old, children who can absorb the information that is taught and can regurgitate it back are given good grades. And the children who follow the rules and follow the status quo and don't make a fuss, they are praised. When you think of it this way and you see it for the truth, it's one big creepy brainwashing and conditioning system. It's actually really, really crazy when you step back and see it and think about it this way. And personally, in school, the only class I was pushed to critically think and question the status quo was my gifted class. And only a small number of students got to be in the gifted class who tested into it. And even then, my teacher was always getting attacked by some of the other teachers. One particular teacher that seemed like was always at odds with her was one that was extremely Christian. And how did I know this? Because he talked about it. And I specifically remember him in a science class telling everyone that the morning after pill was considered abortion. So, I mean, if we want to do some comparing, the teacher who was teaching us to critically think and challenge the status quo, she was getting attacked by a teacher pushing pretty fundamentalist Christian beliefs. It's a really interesting dynamic to look back at now. And this is actually a great example of how the dark global elite strategically sets up belief systems and mechanisms that do a lot of the patrolling for them. They set it up so people attack each other instead of them having to step in at all. The dark is very clever. I'll give them that. And they put up all of these pillars of control and manipulation to hide the truth. And really, the truth is extremely, extremely nuanced. That's what I've learned from all of this information I'm sharing, how truly nuanced it is. And you can't just take anything we're taught at face value. And actually, this brings up a really popular saying, it's just popping in my head, and that the devil is in the details. That so completely goes along with this. But back to this idea of patrolling each other and how these different narratives are set up really strategically, and it causes people to go after each other, and it's basically a self-cleaning oven. So a good example is seeing how people acted during the pandemic. There was a ton of fear and guilt running rampant. There's fear around what this virus was, what would happen, fear around people dying, fear around death. And then there was guilt around spreading the virus to others. You know, guilt, you're going to kill people. You're so selfish, yada yada. And this fear, guilt, and hysteria caused people to self-patrol each other, essentially, attacking others who didn't fall in compliance to the push narrative. Complete attacks around anti-vaxxers. Think of the whole archetype and narrative around anti-vaxxers. There you go. And then comes in education or indoctrination. Some people screamed and used education as their soapbox or their pillar to stand on. People screamed, "I'm educated," and "look at the science." There is quote unquote educated, and then there is true intelligence that equates to critical thinking. And often the educated listen to whatever the science says or whatever they remembered from their years and hard work in education, which, like I mentioned, is the most corrupt pillar of society. And then the critical thinking group asks, okay, who's pushing the science? There's a lot of corruption in science and research as well. And the thing is, even that isn't fully enough. Even to be a critical thinker isn't enough right now to see the truth. So, what's missing here? What's missing is bringing in this divine aspect. And we call it divine here, but it's actually our true nature. And like I talk about on and on, we've just been purposely cut off from higher dimensional energies. And we've been purposely cut off from God energy. It's actually our divine birthright, and this is natural to us. But here we have to do extra to anchor this in. We need to have our body properly anchoring in these energies, and our chakras need to be open and working properly. This is how we anchor in higher dimensional energy and connect directly to God. And when we are connected, we'll gain discernment, see truth, and receive divine insight and divine guidance. That is the missing puzzle piece here. Even when we look past this indoctrination of education and we start to critically think, we really need this last piece of the puzzle, which is anchoring in of this higher dimensional energy and connection to God. Only then can we truly have the eyes to see. It might sound pretty crazy to some how we should ignore history and we should seek answers within. It sounds crazy until you do it. And this episode gets into that, and this activation that I talk about, it'll actually help you do that. But truly, when we connect to God energy and we have our chakras aligned, spinning, and anchoring in true, high frequency God energy, source energy, we truly receive divine guidance. We truly receive this divine insight. You've heard probably people call them downloads. You do get this divine information, and it gives you discernment, and it gives you courage, and you want to seek the truth. So, absolutely, it seems crazy, but once you start seeking and connecting to God and the light, you'll get this. It's not crazy, it's your divine birthright. It's our true nature. Don't feel like it's an impossible mountain to climb to ignore history and seek the answers for yourself. We are powerful, we are divine, and we're in an amazing time. We are stepping into that now. I have chills saying that, and like, I kind of want to cry. I have tears coming to my eyes because it's so true. I have chills. Now's the time we are truly stepping into our power and our divine nature as energy alchemists. I just think this episode is really important, especially right now. So I'm just honored to share it with you. Okay, so now back to the episode. I kind of went on a little tangent there. But actually it's not really a tangent because now I'm looking at my notes. This definitely ties into us stepping into our true power and our true divinity. So, some souls who were alive in these times of persecution of these groups, they can have lasting trauma even lifetimes later. And you might hear this concept. I've heard it termed a witch wound. And the term witchcraft can be viewed as a subcategory of energy alchemy, but even witchcraft is neutral. Witchcraft can be used for dark or light. Some souls who live during these times of persecution may be here now for a reason, and not may, you're here for a reason. But these souls may be afraid to step into their mission because of past life trauma associated with the quote unquote witch wounds. And then I already said this, but think about where this persecution stems from. The dark global elite manipulated groups via organized religions, made them deeply fear energy alchemy to the point they would kill over this fear. We really need to step back and keep this framework of manipulation in mind. They program us to have mass hysteria, have a lot of fear, Oftentimes, our nervous systems are dysregulated, so we can't properly step back and regulate that emotional response. So then that fear may cause us to act in absolute insane ways like killing over this fear. This is really the framework of war as well. And you know what I always say about war? It's the number one way the dark global elite money launders. So they can have money, and that money's filling their pockets. They can live off that. And then they just push this idea of scarcity to everyone else. When in fact, scarcity is a myth. It's not a real thing. There's no scarcity. They want us to think there's scarcity so they can control us in every way possible. We really need to work to regulate our nervous systems so we can truly regulate and be in charge of our own emotions. So then when they flash the stuff over the media that they're trying to create mass fear and they're trying to put out thought forms so we create it in our reality, we need to be able to have a regulated nervous system so we can step back and think critically about that before we tie any emotion to it or put out any emotion towards that idea. And in the media, they really try to manipulate us with our emotions. They want us to vote in politics with our emotions. They want us not to see clearly and just put out an emotional response so we can't even see the truth. We're just so tied to it emotionally that we don't step back, think clearly, and see the truth. They really try to manipulate us with our emotions. Also, time out. I'm editing this podcast, but I'm stopping to add this because it just hit me like a ton of bricks. We know how the media puts out thought forms, so we latch on, put emotion towards that, and we put our energy towards it to create it in our reality. And like I've been harping on, our energy follows our intention. Where we put our intention is where we put our energy. Okay, so we know all of that. And it's come up a lot recently about weather manipulation. Everything just goes down to energy. So what if they're manipulating the weather by just having some sort of system, or what if they have some sort of mechanism or system or machine in place that generates a lot of energy? It just puts out a ton of energy to create this energetic front that will be a weather system, essentially. And then we always see it on the news, biggest hurricane coming at Florida, or some news headline, and it's always negative. It's always kind of fear-based, fear-mongering. So then everyone is worried about it, putting out their energy, saying, oh my gosh, it's going to be the biggest hurricane. Oh no, what about this? So they're putting out that thought form that everyone's latching onto, and then putting more energy towards this already established big ball or system of energy that they could create out of nowhere. And then that's all perpetuating these natural disasters. What if that's a piece of it? And then we see other pieces of it, like the past experiment where they put dry ice into a hurricane and it made a sharp turn. So what if these are some of the different puzzle pieces behind it all? But then with Hurricane Milton, there was a big movement I saw on TikTok and I joined in with, where everyone was either praying, meditating, or visualizing for the hurricane to dissipate. People were doing energy work and imagining the eye of the storm breaking up. I saw a lot of different videos about this, and it's so amazing. So people were putting out that positive intention, putting their energy towards this, and that was impacting the fourth dimension collective consciousness. So that really, really does make an impact, and that is energy alchemy. So we really need to understand this energetic framework moving forward so we can truly adopt it in every part of our lives. And this is the perfect example of when I say we are in a spiritual war and this war is fought via energy alchemy. this is the perfect example of us using energy alchemy to fight against the dark. And essentially, the goal of this spiritual war is to anchor in higher dimensional energy. That's one part of it. And to take back the fourth dimension. We need to take control of the collective consciousness. We need to spread the truth so people truly believe this and start to tap into their own intuition, tap into God, source energy, and tap into the higher dimensional energies. Okay, tangent over, now back to the episode. And if you listen to my other episodes, you know how we create our own reality. And we send out frequency via our emotions. And that goes out into the quantum where there's tiny strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. And then the energy we send out is vibrating at that emotion we had. And it connects to the wave of energy where like attracts like, and they form into the same frequency. And then that's pulled back into our reality. So we really need to get our nervous systems regulated so we can truly regulate and be completely in charge of our emotions. Okay, so at this point you may be asking, so what is energy alchemy actually? What all does this elusive term encompass? So first off, here are some archetypes we currently have of energy alchemists. Oracle, high priestess, healer, shaman, magician or mystic, or mage, the alchemist, witch or spellcaster, the sage or wisdom keeper. So then within all of these archetypes, you can be doing it for the light or the dark. Because like I said, the term energy alchemist is just neutral. Light is high vibrational energy, while dark is lower vibrational energy. And the dark global elite obviously work with lower vibrational energies. And they actually can't even hold high frequency energies. They cannot operate in that frequency band. You have to be able to hold that vibration and hold that level of light in your body. And that actually ties in with other stuff I talk about and ties into why we always hear the spiritual community talking about why we need to raise our vibration. And it ties to my episode on the Schumann resonance. But I won't get into that. I keep going on these tangents. So if you recall from my previous episodes, each emotion has a unique frequency. And emotions like fear, sadness, and despair are lower vibrational emotions. And that's what the dark global elite need energy-wise in order to work with it. They use this low vibrational energy and then use the power of their intention to direct it how they wish. And this is the basis for satanic rituals. I won't get into all the darkness associated with these satanic rituals, but the dark global elite, they love sacrifice. We can tie a lot of this darkness exactly with them. I don't really want to get into it. I have it written out actually, but I'm going to keep it light. But just think about all the low frequency energy that's created and emitted when they might do some of these satanic ritual practices. They're harvesting that energy, and then they're using that energy combined with their intention to direct it how they wish, to control humanity, to make things happen. And we only get energy when we're connected to God. I've talked about it before, but when we're fully connected to God energy, to the source energy, we have no needs. We are fully sustained. We need nothing else. And the dark global elite aren't connected to source energy, so they have to energy harvest essentially. And they get their energy by doing these dark, satanic ritual practices. And remember, they do not resonate with this high frequency energy. They cannot operate at all in that frequency band. So now I'll get into how the light uses energy alchemy. And I'll talk about how the light uses it currently on Earth, and then how we will use it in the future. But when I say how we'll use it in the future, this is actually tied to our true nature and is actually how we use it in realms or experiences that are completely free, the realms that we archetypally call heaven. And remember, these are the realms where they just completely resonate with God energy and all of the higher dimensional energies. On Earth, we have this false matrix that is cutting us off from these higher dimensional energies. We use energy alchemy in so many ways you probably don't even realize. Well, technically, every action is energy alchemy. When we set intention, we use energy alchemy. Intention is just directed energy, and our energy flows with intention. And this is tied back to our Holy Trinity. And I'll talk about that later. I talked about it in other episodes, but I'll mention it again later. And when we visualize, meditate, and pray, we're practicing energy alchemy. We already constantly use it unknowingly, so think of the power we'll have once we understand energy alchemy, know how to harness it, know how to practice it, and we use it intentionally in our day-to-day lives. Our true nature is essentially superhuman. And our entire existence is energy alchemy. We create our reality constantly, even if we don't even realize it. Remember, reality is observer dependent. We can manifest and will things into existence. We can protect our own energy. We can anchor in high frequency into the ley lines of Earth's magnetic grid. We can energetically clear our own chakras and shift our mood by being intentional. We are so divine and we are so powerful. Think about orgasms and sex. They're literally divine and powerful. It's an exchange, an explosion of energy. We really need to wake up to how energy works and how divine and powerful we are. We are directly connected to God, to source energy, to the light, and this is the energy we work with. In this way, we are co-creating with God. Humans are directly connected to the light and connected to God whether they know it or not. And everyone needs to wake up to this and intentionally channel God energy into your heart. It will change your life and bring you love, peace, and set you free. And I already mentioned this a little bit, but the dark global elite are archetypally what we view as fallen angels and are disconnected from God or source energy. And God or source energy is what sustains us. And in realms that don't have a false matrix and are completely in resonance with God energy, we literally have no needs at all. And there's no death. This is kind of crazy, but if you think about it, when we are fully in resonant with God energy and there's no false matrix cutting us off, there's no death. And in that way, when we're living on Earth, we're actually just slowly dying. I don't want that to sound dark, but it really puts it into perspective of what our true nature is. So we're just slowly dying because we're not fully resonating and anchoring in God energy, which would fully sustain us. And then what happens with us slowly dying? Sickness, health issues. And who profits off of that? The dark global elite. They profit off health issues, sickness, profit off death. I've heard death is very expensive. And since the dark global elite aren't sustained by source like humans are, they manipulate and control humanity in order to siphon and use humanity's energy. But like I mentioned, they can only use the low vibrational energy because that's the frequency band they operate in. Once we raise our frequency to be in emotional frequencies like love, peace, and compassion, the dark global elite can't siphon that kind of energy because they can't even energetically access that frequency band. This is why when the dark global elite are scrambling, they will create mass trauma events that cause a lot of fear and a lot of sadness. These mass trauma events also dysregulate the nervous system, so people are stuck in fight or flight and can't properly regulate their emotions. It's absolutely not normal to automatically react without thought. We must be absolutely fully in charge of our emotions and never, never, never automatically send out emotions without thought. So, this is an interesting side note, but the dark global elite will energy harvest at large mass events like concerts and sporting events. And this has to do with the frequency of the music. Think about the lyrics or the emotions you feel when you listen to a song, or maybe that nostalgic feeling that makes you look back and maybe feel a little tinge of sadness or something like that. And it's super powerful when you're singing lyrics. Lyrics are words. Words are tied to spelling, and spell is essentially an intention. And as I said, where we put our intention, that's where our energy goes. So if you're at a concert and you're singing derogatory rap lyrics, or even singing songs that you might feel like you really like, but they're actually a little sad, remind you of some sad event you went through, a breakup, or remind you of your ex, something like that. Just be careful what you're singing. You don't want to be singing songs that are making you think back to negative times in your life. And I've talked about before, but a lot of songwriters and a lot of songs they'll sing when they're going through something because it's a way to release your emotions, but then really be careful about revisiting that or tying emotions to songs that you're singing. And same with if you're just listening to a song on the radio or on Spotify, wherever. Really be aware of what emotion it's invoking, because that's why the music industry is so big. That's why there's so much darkness tied to it. It's because of the power of our words, the power of songs, and the power of these mass events. When you're singing those lyrics and putting emotion to it, you're basically casting a spell. Now think about a football game. You're getting entertainment and you might be yelling or getting mad at different plays or how someone's performing. That's sending out a lot of energy. If you look at it, you're sending all of that energy out while basically a player is sacrificing their body on the field for money and society's entertainment. I really don't want to kill anyone's entertainment here, but that really is the underlying truth behind it once you boil it all down. And it's no coincidence. There's no coincidence there's so much money in professional sports. And then look at it, there's no coincidence of why it's so publicized that certain sports players and certain celebrities get together. They're just vying for our attention because that's how they subtly get energy for themselves and sustain themselves. They basically sustain themselves from our attention. This is the case with so much of our society and our popular culture. We've been lied to and controlled by so many things. And even just being aware of these things helps. Just be sure to start protecting your energy. And you can go back and listen to my episode on how to protect your energy for more details. It really does matter. So now I'll get into the energy alchemy of the future, or our true nature outside of this earth experience. So we actually have more chakras or energy centers of the body in our true form than we do right now on earth. And these help us alchemize energy in all the ways I'm going to talk about. And these other chakras help us connect to our other quote unquote lives and other experiences. And I say quote unquote lives, but it's not a finite linear timeline type of life like we think of here. I mentioned how we build our eternal lives in these different experiences, and we move around as we wish. You can kind of view them as different games with different setups, different vibes, etc. How And it's the fourth dimension, which is the dimension of archetypes, myths, and the collective mind. That's the non-physical veil that sets the vibe of these different experiences. That's kind of the programming of the different games, you could say. And then we bounce around by using our Merkaba light body. We can also instantly manifest and will things into existence, and these experiences operate on synchronicity. We can telepathically communicate, and we can absorb messages and concepts just by looking at code forms. And we can build things that seem impossible by human engineering standards. An example is the Great Pyramids in Egypt. We are basically superhuman, and those are just a few examples. Okay, so now I want to swing back to us being energy alchemists now. I talk about this in other episodes, so you may be familiar, but we operate in a holy trinity, and that's our body, our consciousness, and our soul. Our body is our sacred vessel and is how we interact in these physical experiences. And our body regulates our energy in the way required to create our own reality, because reality is observer dependent. We're basically projecting our experience. So then within our body, we have chakras that regulate the energy that we are anchoring in. And these are just energy centers of the body. And these chakras need to be aligned and spinning to properly regulate energy in a way where we can co-create with God energy. Once our chakras are all opened, aligned, and spinning and healthy, then our energy system will be working properly. And then our energy truly will flow with our intention, and this is essentially the basis of energy alchemy. And our consciousness is what gives us the intention part of this equation. So with energy alchemy and stepping into our true nature and divinity, step 1 is aligning all of our chakras and activating the upper chakras that connect us directly to God or source energy. And this will give you divine insight and divine guidance. Without these upper chakras activated and working properly, you are basically a horse with blinders on or someone living with a wool mask on their eyes. And you don't need an outside person to do this for you. You can do this yourself. I did a separate recording that will guide you on how to do this. It's a guided prayer, visualization, and energy activation. And like I said, this is step 1 into stepping into your true divinity as an energy alchemist. And this is our birthright, and it's our inherent nature. The truth has just been hidden from us. So set aside about 20 to 30 minutes of quiet time where you can close your eyes and get comfortable, and you can do the guided prayer and activation. And the recording gives a little background before we get going, and I just explain what we're going to do. And it'll guide you through activating and aligning the chakras, and then specifically making sure the upper chakras are activated. And it's so funny and so interesting because I originally wrote most of this episode down a few days ago, and I thought I was pretty much done. But I had stopped at what our power and energy alchemy looks like outside of this. That's where I stopped. And then this morning I sat down to write down a prayer for humanity, and I was going to post that on social media. And then I just started writing about this activation instead. And when I got going, I was like, wait, this isn't the prayer I was thinking. Okay, I'll just go with this. And then only after I wrote it all down and recorded it, then I realized it completely relates and goes along with this week's podcast episode. So I'm like, wait, that completely ties to that topic. And I definitely need to add some more onto that podcast episode. It's just so magical and divine how all of this comes together. Okay, to end it, now that you know your true nature as an energy alchemist, and now that you know your energy flows with your intention, and you know how powerful and divine you are, I want to put out a call to action. So use this knowledge and pray for humanity. Visualize humanity all just getting flooded in light, everyone having a spiritual awakening and seeking and finding truth and finding God and co-creating their reality with God. Just really start praying for that or visualizing it or meditating. Truly, any of those practices work, whichever you resonate with the most. Just start doing that and really send out your love and your compassion to humanity. And think about this when you come into contact with other people. Just really set the intention to share your light with others. Just set the intention that your energy, when it comes into contact with someone else, it activates this. It activates their connection to God in a way where they learn the truth themselves. It really doesn't work to just tell people. They need to truly experience it. So just set that intention that your energy is a light to others and activates others. So I don't know about you, but for me, I always thought one prayer at night is enough. But, I don't listen to everything in the Bible, but you definitely can tie truths back to the Bible. And I believe a part talks about pray without ceasing. And this is so true. The more we put out our intention and put out our energy, literally the more energy that's going towards that intention or that outcome. So every second, every minute counts. Every minute you're praying and setting your intention on something is another minute going towards that. So whatever resonates with you, but I'm really keeping it in my mind. I do want to pray without ceasing. And yeah, not in a way where I'm going to sit in a temple like a monk and just pray all day, but in a more modern way, I guess you say. Just every time I think of it, I want to say a prayer. And at night, I'm going to be really intentional about meditating because that you can typically, I think of it as you can do for longer because you're sitting there and just visualizing this outcome. So, whatever resonates with you, but just know truly every minute you're setting your intention and your energy and you're directing it towards something, every minute matters. I just wanted to put that out there and put a nice little call to action so we can all help. Because remember, like I said at the beginning of this episode, we're truly in a spiritual war, and energy alchemy is how it's fought. So truly, you're being a warrior for the light when you are praying for humanity, when you're visualizing great outcomes for humanity, and you're meditating with these intentions in mind. That's how we're fighting this war. And I really didn't realize that until recently. So I'm going to be praying a lot more, meditating more, visualizing more, and just really putting a lot of my energy and a lot of my intention on humanity just being flooded with God's light, humanity pulling the wool from their eyes, humanity seeing the truth, and everyone's heart chakras just being blasted open. So that's where I'm putting my intention, and I would love for you to join me in that. Okay, that is all for this week. I love you all. And remember, there's another recording, the prayer, and the energy activation that you can go do when you have some quiet time this week. And you can save it and do that over and over whenever you feel like you need to be rebalanced. So if this resonated, please like and subscribe and send to a friend. It means all the difference to me. You have no idea. So I love you. Have a great week. Bye.